welcome to another edition of Maximum Growth Live. I'm your host, Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex Social Media Marketing for Lawyers, as well as CEO of Ruane Attorneys, a civil rights and criminal defense firm here in Connecticut. And with me, as always, my compadre, my partner in crime, and the first lawyer I would call if I were behind bars, because he probably knows somebody in that town. It's Mr. Seth Price. Seth is the founder of Price Benowitz, managing partner there, as well as the founder of Blue Shark Digital that does SEO and digital marketing for law firms all over the country. And I want to say, hello, Seth. How's your week going?
It's going well. I feel like the weather is breaking, starting to see some light. Got myself up to New York for I got a fix in there, and hoping that we, slowly get back to normal. I feel like
I think it's starting to roll out. I got my first shot a couple weeks ago. I got my second shot coming in 2 more weeks. I'll feel a lot more comfortable heading out after that. And really, I think that's happening at least in the areas where we live, the Northeast corridor, Seth. A lot more people are starting to go out and that type of thing, and that's going to impact business.
Right. We're now seeing 16 and over eligible for inoculations in most jurisdictions in the Northeast, or many, and that just indicates that the inventory is there. Now they have to get it to those people that are willing, and hopefully we can look at this in the rearview mirror sooner than later, but much longer than we thought. When we thought we were planning out a 4-month plan at the beginning, thinking that we were exaggerating what it would be. And the fact that we're, over a year later now, it is quite extraordinary, but, excited to see our guest today. I think we got a good one.
Yeah. So, it's funny. We just talking about that point that you just made. I can remember getting on the phone with you and talking about, can we just make it till October? And what I heard today was that the SBA has increased the limits on EIDL loans that people could get. It used to be 150, and they're going to increase that to 500,000. So if you're still suffering, there may be some opportunity there to help with your funding. And certainly that's something that we want to talk about. But tell us a little bit about who we have on the show today, because, this is something that we've been talking about off camera for a little while, because as our focus here on Max Growth Live is all about growing your firm, we really have somebody who actually has done it, and has done it at such an impressive scale that I think it's going to be an interesting conversation.
No, absolutely. So Mark Proctor is the business backbone. He's the president of Levin Papatonio Rafferty. And it's, for those that don't know, one of the top mass tort firms in the country. And not only are they a firm that's on the steering committee of a ton of the cases that are out there, they also are the parents of the MTMP, Mass Torts Made Perfect conference, which is 20 years old at this point, and has really been a place that a lot of lawyers go to learn about mass torts, figuring out if it's something that they want as part of their practice, to make it something they want to invest in, et cetera. And it's been twice a year in Vegas, and for the last couple, it's been virtual, as this one will be. Hopefully by the fall, in October, they'll be back in person. But Mark is a guy, the people who know the firm. Mike Papantonio is sort of the national face, in the sense that he's on national TV. He speaks. He's sort of an incredible, been a bunch of documentaries. You never know what documentary you're watching. And I was watching a documentary the other day, one of the ones that won Best Picture, and he's like a central figure in it. So he's done so many different things. Mark is a guy I've watched him behind the scenes, pulling the strings. And what's always amazed me is that this is a multi-generational firm with incredible talent, where the talent has, they lose people, but they keep an incredible amount of talent in-house who stay with them. And, I'm always amazed that firms, especially a firm that deals with big hits, that's what they deal with. Like, they wait many years before getting paid on things, that they are able to keep that talent together over the years is just remarkable, and can't wait to hear Mark's perspective on how they've done that.
Yeah, it's interesting. They actually participated in the tobacco litigation down in Florida. I have some friends up here in New York that did the tobacco litigation in New York, and that was one of the precursors to, once that resolved, that firm, split off into a couple of different parts, because when you have such a large influx of a settlement at that point, after 12, 13, 14 years of litigation, some people just say, you know what, they cash in my chips, I'm out. Other people say, I want to do my own thing. And so it's really interesting how they've been able to sort of keep this thing going. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break? You'll hear from our sponsors. And when we get back, we're going to have the Maximum Growth Live interview with Mark Proctor. And we'll talk all about building a Mass Torts firm and how he got it to where it's at. Sound good, Seth?
Sounds great.
All right, we'll be right back, folks, with more Maximum Growth Live. Hi, I'm Jay Ruane, one of the founders of FirmFlex and a practicing attorney for over 20 years. Anyone who knows me knows how my firm runs on the systems we create, and it has allowed us to flourish, even in tough times. I spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars until I finally figured out a way to engage my audience and drive top-of-mind awareness with social media. And what did I do once I figured it all out? I built a system for it, and now you can put that system to work for you. You see, we took the hard part, creating the content and finding the images, and made it foolproof. Every day you will have curated social media topics to post designed to make your firm constantly remind your audience about your firm, what you do, and how you can help. And the best part? You don't even need to hire a dedicated social media person to do this for you. In fact, you don't even need to hire anyone new. We designed the system to make it easy for you to delegate to your receptionist, assistant, or paralegal and have them execute solid social media for you in just 5 minutes a day. It's like having a content writer, researcher, and graphics designer at a fraction of the price it would cost to hire in-house. Sign up today for the Social Super System and start building your brand where your clients already are, on social media.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
We're thrilled to be here with Mark Proctor, the president and brains and moving force behind Levin Papantonio Rafferty. Thank you for being here, Mark.
Thank you, Seth. It's a pleasure to see you, and it's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
On our show here, we talk to several thousand lawyers about law firm growth and scale, and it seems that you've done as good a job as any. Talk to us a little bit about the process over the years of how you've put together what is now considered a juggernaut.
Well, it's been a steady, continuous process over the years. Levin Papantonio Rafferty began many, many years ago, over 65 years ago, 66 to be exact. And we started as a small town law firm. Fred Levin's older brother, David Levin, and his best friend, Reuben Askew, who later went on to be elected governor of Florida, had started a two-man small town law firm. Brother Fred came on board when he graduated from law school, and thus began the personal injury practice of this law firm. Steadily, the firm grew in stature, and Fred began to build a name for himself based upon his prowess, based upon his talent as a personal injury lawyer. His first real big case was the Thorshov case, a case involving a railroad car spill, killing a doctor and his family in the late 70s. And Fred took that into the largest personal injury and wrongful death verdict of its time for its time. And so it really put Fred on the map as the personal injury guy, not only in the Southeast, but one of the primary personal injury attorneys and litigators in the United States. At that point, Fred began building really the basis of a personal injury juggernaut law firm. He brought personal injury lawyers of great talent on board. I came on board in 1980. Mike Papantonio came on board in 1982. And so at that point in time, we were mostly a personal injury law firm. As you know, Mike Papantonio is not only a great trial lawyer, but he's a great visionary. And so we began to not only continue in the practice of personal injury law, but we began to broaden that out into mass tort law, beginning with asbestos litigation. Mike and Larry Morris became heavily involved in asbestos litigation all over the country. And from there, we got into mass tort litigation in an ever increasing large way. We were Florida tobacco lawyers. The tobacco litigation began right here in little old Pensacola. And so we were heavily involved in that. And obviously, you know, the end of that was incredible for the states, incredible for smokers, incredible for the medical community, and we were heavily involved. And so from a monetary perspective, we were some of the lucky beneficiaries of that. And it was kind of interesting in looking at how that kind of success affected law firms. Some law firms broke up. Some law firms spent the next 20 years arguing with each other. We did it differently.
Well, and that's why I was so excited to have you here, because you know, a lot of, you know, Mike may be the front man who's out there front and center on national TV, but as guys who sort of study business models of law firms, you've somehow kept a multi-generational firm with big hits, which, as you mentioned, could blow up a firm, with big personalities and big egos, somehow rowing in the same direction. So would love to hear, like, as the architect of this, or the person who's been at least the steward of it since 1980, you know, talk to us a little bit about how you've accomplished what seems like a Herculean task.
Well, like I say, with our success in tobacco, all of our partners who were working as most people work because they owe their family a living, decided to retire. They didn't need to work anymore. They left behind a few of us old gray-haired men who were very, very passionate about what we did. And then we have built, I will say to anybody with ears, the greatest group of young trial lawyers that I have ever had the privilege to practice law with. And I've been practicing law now for 46 years. And so what we have done, we have an unbelievable synergy here. We've grown into mass torts. We do have unbelievable egos here, but Mike and I have been smart enough to realize that we cannot grow the way we want to grow without giving our young lawyers a shot as soon as they acquire the talents and acquire the skills large enough to take the shot at the MDL levels that we play in. And so what we've done is we have graduated our people along very quickly. We do not have a stifling mentality here. We allow all of our people to soar. We keep it together by communication. We keep it together by having a motto. We choose our projects carefully. We do well by doing good. We are committed in this firm to undertaking cases and projects that will make a difference in the lives of people, whether it's environmental litigation, whether it's cleaning up the Ohio River Valley from the byproducts of the Teflon making process, whether it's getting bad drugs off the market, whether it's handling wrongful death cases, whether it's representing 2,500 Gold Star families in litigation against the country of Iran because these family members were blown up by Iranian terrorist bombs while they were on active duty on behalf of the United States in Iraq. These are the kind of cases that motivate us. These are the kind of cases that drive us forward. These are the kind of cases that impassion us. And so these are the kinds of things that keep us on the same page, driving the train in the same direction. Mike and I, 20 years ago, not only were concerned about our own firm, but we were concerned about the collegial body of plaintiffs' lawyers that we dealt with. And we thought that collectively, all of our brothers and sisters spent far too much time arguing with each other as to how to do things, how to undertake these large projects, because after all, the recognition is we are battling, we are competing against the largest corporations in the world, the biggest insurance companies in the world, with all of the ability to fight, all of the money in the world, never say die attitudes. And so we felt like there was a need to try and coalesce our profession, try to figure a way to build something that would enable us to, as a profession, as a mass tort profession, to get together, to stay together, to strategize together so that when we undertook the big fight, we would be undertaking it together in a cohesive way. And so we thought, how could we, in essence, build something that would approach a national law firm without the infrastructure of a national law firm? And so 21 years ago, we built Mass Torts Made Perfect, MTMP. And that was our way of trying to bring our profession together so that we could not only learn, we could not only stay on top of the profession, but we could bring our colleagues together so that we could strategize, coalesce, and approach the litigations that we undertake in a concerted, more warlike mentality. So I would say through communication, through organization, through a lot of passion, through a lot of dedication, not only have, and it'd be wrong to say, kept our organization together, because it's been way more than that. We are a driven organization who have dedicated ourselves to trying to make a difference. We lost Fred Levin this year to COVID. And we have always recognized that this organization and the good that we do and the good that we've tried to bring to our overall profession through our works and through the organization of MTMP needs to outlive us, needs to outlive all of us. We have all, and what you do, we are all part of what I call instrumentalities of good. And those instrumentalities need to outlive all of us. So what we all become, if you will, is a living legacy. We see Levin Papantonio Rafferty is the continuation of the legacy of Fred Levin. He began it. Mike continued it. People ask me and have over many years, what's the deal between you and Mike? What's the relationship between you and Mike? How do y'all make it work? You've been together 38 years. How does it work? And, I say, well, if we were a rock band, Mike would be Mick Jagger and I'm the band manager. And it works. We undertake the big fights, and we're in it for the big fights, and we've built for many years for these fights, and we are committed, and we have stayed committed to making a difference. And for Mike and me, we've been at it for a very long time, and I can tell you it's very it's a wonderful feeling to still rush to get to your office every day when you've been doing it for as long as we've been doing it. And it's because we like to think that we're doing it right. We like to think that we're making a difference. And we like to think that we are, in fact, building something that will far go into the future and continue to do good work long past us.
Well, Jay is going to jump into systems in a second, but first I just want to make sure people know that the MTMP, which will be virtual this year, Virtual Vegas, will be April 13th through the 15th, and we'll have links in the comments for anybody who wants to jump on and register. Great way to sort of get indoctrinated into the world of mass torts. Yep. I wanted to follow up before Jay moved into sort of the systems and how you've sort of built this and kept this under control. You know, you talk about, multi-generational, and you talk about empowering people, but for people out there who have firms with maybe a couple partners that are trying to empower the next generation, and you guys have done as good a job as any, at least as an outsider looking in, what are some of the touch points, whether they be economic or whether they be sort of sharing the spotlight? What are some of the things that you think that have worked for you guys that others could learn from, as far as many firms blow up over economics? They lose the talent before they get to the point that they are at the partnership level. What are some of the things you think you've done particularly well that others could learn from?
Well, I think in terms of taking young people, young lawyers, and making them part of your organization is what I said earlier. It's advancing them. It's not keeping them down. It's letting them go as soon as they have the skills and the techniques to go. I think firms make a mistake holding people back because, number one, it thwarts growth. If your top two, your top three people insist on doing everything, insist on keeping their thumbs on the younger people, then by definition, that law firm is not going to be able to grow or expand to take on new matters as quickly as a firm who is able to delegate responsibility to the younger people. From the standpoint of a young person's growth, if you, as the head of your law firm, partner in your law firm, are dedicated to hiring talented lawyers, you have to understand, in our business, sure, managing egos may be a challenge, but we want people with egos. That makes people in our profession, particularly the profession of litigation, very successful. And when you are attracting and hiring people who've got egos, then you've got to deal with those egos. And one way to deal with the egos is to allow those people to take on all the responsibilities that they're capable of. And I think that the best thing that we have done over the years, and why you see us, because we don't have 100 lawyers, we don't have 200 lawyers. I mean, we operate in as many levels as we operate across the multitude of as many mass tort projects as we get involved in with 45 lawyers, which is a large personal injury firm, but it's not a mega firm when it comes to lawyers. And so the reason why we're able to operate the way we do is because we allow our young people, once they have acquired the skills, to grow and to function in the areas that they are capable of functioning in without governors.
Jay?
Sure. Thanks so much for being with us, Mark. I want to ask you a question about when you first joined, right? Because you said it was back in 1980, and you came to the firm because Attorney Levin wanted to start with an environmental litigation department. So you had
That's
that
correct.
prior experience. You came in with a plan to take the firm in that direction. But one of the things that interests me about coming into a firm, and you see it with successful firms like yours, like Seth's, is that oftentimes there is one person who is focused solely on the law and another person that's focused solely on sort of creating the systems, building the business, building the ship that someone's going to steer. How vital is it to have somebody, as you are growing your firm, to be focused on all the other parts besides the law? And is it possible, do you think, for one person to be both lawyer and operations person if you want to scale?
Well, I think it is important as a firm grows to have somebody, quote, minding the store, building the systems, supervising the systems. When I got here in 1980, with the exception of 2 or 3 of us, we had about 25 lawyers, and probably 20 of them, 22 of them were personal injury lawyers, each person having their own practice. We had cases coming into the firm, they would be distributed, but each person was responsible for their own practice. It was a much different system than I have built over the years, because we were not involved in the Mass Tort practice at that point. And everybody was involved in litigation. We had committees who ran the firm. We had a president who was elected annually who looked out after the firm. But as the firm grew, it became obvious that we needed somebody more and more to spend time not only developing the systems necessary to achieve the growth that the Papantonio Levin vision was going to require, but to supervise and to make sure that literally on a day-to-day basis that we were moving in the right direction, that inertia was not taking over. When you look at a law firm who's heavily involved in both the traditional forms of personal injury practice, meaning car wrecks, wrongful death, personal injury, medical malpractice, Social Security disability, workers' compensation, but then to a major degree involved in the Mass Tort practice, where at any one time we may be involved in 15, maybe even 20 Mass Tort projects where we are in leadership in various MDLs. And you realize, because of the complicated nature of that litigation, to keep that kind of an operation running, not only do you have to design the systems, but you have to make sure that the systems are not only operational, but actually operate on a daily basis with the appropriate communication to make sure that everything moves forward. We are now an operation of 45 lawyers, 200 employees, and that is a big labor-intensive operation to move forward on a constant basis. We have become, over the years, very self-sufficient. We do all of our radio. We have a TV studio in the firm. We have radio studios in the firm. We do all of our production in-house. So we have become a multi-spoked wheel here, which needs constant oversight. So over the years, what we have learned, and again, unlike our old model, which was electing a leader, a president once a year, I guess I've been in the driver's seat now for 20 years. I enjoy the practice of law. It became obvious to me many years ago that I was no longer going to have the luxury of being a litigating lawyer where I could participate in, being out of town in trial for time like my colleagues are, simply because there is so much going on around here on a daily basis that requires my attention, that both of those disciplines could not be accommodated at the same time and be done with the degree of specificity and expertise that I would require in my practice. And so, I intentionally had to give up that, which I love. So I've refused to give up the practice of law. I will not and cannot just be an administrator. And so I handle the part of the practice that I can do from Pensacola, from the office. I'm one of these people that believes that in order to have a successful organization, you've got to have somebody at the top who's in residence all the time. If you always heard the adage that to have a successful restaurant, you got to have an owner who just lives there. Well, I'm the guy who lives at the office. I like being at the office. I come in early. I'm here all day. I'm here on the weekends. And so through the development of our systems, through the development of very specific ways that we communicate constantly, one of my many jobs is to make sure that all of our cases, all of our projects, all of our efforts move forward constantly.
We only have limited time, Jay.
Okay.
Time for one or two questions. Go ahead, and then I got a final.
Okay, so my question is this. We've talked a couple of times about my favorite word, which is systems. When you are going up against some of these corporations that have balance sheets in the billions, and they have an institutional structure and systems set up to essentially protect them from these mass tort cases where they have levels and levels. Tell us about the role of systems in attacking a mass torts case and the value of having a cohesive way to approach them, and what role it plays in your firm.
Used to be years ago that these large defendants would bury the plaintiffs' firms in documents so that the plaintiffs' firms would never get to the top. They would never be able to get through all the documents and figure out really what the truth is. We developed the systems, and colleagues like us in the mass tort profession developed the systems to get through all that. And one thing that you can never forget is the arrogance of these corporations, that they still put the bad stuff in writing. And so what we have done is developed the unbelievable systems to be able to go through the millions and millions of documents that we get in discovery phase of all of this litigation. And in all of these documents are the terrible inner workings of the companies that bust them. And so it's a matter of finding what we call the hot docs, the hot documents that absolutely skewer these defendants. We have made, and our colleagues out in the profession have busted more of these mass tort cases wide open on the documents of the companies themselves, because as I say, after 47 years of practice, it is still shocking to me that these companies factor into consideration in their business plans the cost of killing people, and then are arrogant enough to put it in writing, and most of the time brag about it, and we find it. And so those are many of the ways that these cases are blown up and won.
So my final question for you before Pap takes over the studio is what, I always ask people, like, what were any mistakes along the way and or things you wish you knew earlier that would be useful for our audience? What were some, because you learn a lot from what you did wrong and then had to correct.
Well, you always learn. One of the things that I think is very valuable is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make decisions, move forward, make the best decision you can make, but don't allow yourself to flounder because you're afraid to make a decision. If you make a decision and you realize it's incorrect, make a mid-course correction as opposed to being afraid to make a decision. We have refined that process around here over the years, and it has served us very well. You don't make that initial decision flippantly, but make the decision and move forward. Never be afraid to learn. This is a learning process all the way. Please attend Virtual Vegas, April 13 through 15. Stay connected. We think we'll be back in October, but it's very important. It's going to be all the topics that matter to all of us. Al Pacino is going to be the entertainment. It's going to be a great production. You're going to be missing out if you're not there. So join us for MTMP Virtual Vegas, April 13 through 15. Seth, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed
Thank
this.
you, Mark. We'll look forward to seeing you virtually in April and hopefully in person in October.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Jay. I've enjoyed this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll be right back with more Maximum Growth Live. Wow, Seth. I mean, talk about a conversation there. There were so many little things that just kind of flow off the cuff to him, but it's all stuff that people in our audience need to be thinking about. Things that jumped off to me right away, talking about finding your passion. They have a passion at their firm for the Mass Tort space. And that's, I think that's something that, we talked early on in some of our earlier programs about people, because of COVID, they were like, well, I'm going to pivot now. But what we have heard over the last year from almost all of our guests, inevitably, is I have a passion about this area of law. And I think with Mark and his firm, that's something that is huge, and it certainly impacts the bottom line. And I think that's one of my big takeaways, is that there has to be passion in however, and the passion fuels the growth, right?
No, absolutely. And look, I feel like as we've had some of these people that have built incredible pieces, we get to see the top layer. And what I think he was humble about is what they have kept together. That as you talked about these egos, that is not nothing. I wish we had time to dive deeper into the logistics, because again, take the B2B firms, the white shoe firms, when they get big hits, we saw places like Howry blow up. People took their money and walked. So the idea that they were able to keep this together, and you see them at MTMP, it's like a family in Pensacola. It is, that they have done a remarkable job, because, think about how much we've accomplished in a decade or two at our firms in the general max law community. To think about what you can do as that becomes, dozens of years, scores of years that they're together and building this and rowing. And the fact that he and Pap were, in the early 80s coming on board, but this is a firm that had been there. I always look at people, we've had Andrew Finkelstein on, people that had a parent create something that they're able to take to the next level. I think there's things that you can accomplish with that infrastructure, how much time it took you to figure out those basic systems. If you can get your kids through law school fast enough, if they could operate a generation after those systems are in place, imagine what they could accomplish.
Well, I mean, just think about it. We talk about systems like it's part of our DNA. You have your way of running your firm, and you've got systems that are in place. I document everything. I put my systems in place. And a lot of people in our audience, they've adapted and adopted systems as a way to scale their firm, which is great. But we're talking, less than 1% of law firms out there have a systems-based approach to anything. Obviously, the Finkelstein firm, they have a systems. Levin Papantonio Rafferty, they have systems. The firms that are big, the firms that have made it, the firms that have survived, all seem to have one thing in common. And it's systems that you can rely on. And the thing that I found interesting, and I really wanted to ask the question, we ran out of time, was about recruiting with those mental attitudes of, I'm going to follow the systems, and I'm going to, and I'm going to help us scale. I mean, we could probably talk for 3 hours and kept going.
Well, now that we're out of COVID, hopefully Mark's more accessible, so we'll have a pop-up where we get those questions answered.
Well, maybe next year we can get to October, we can get to MTMP, and we can do a live show there. That would be fantastic. It's interesting. I've attended years and years ago as sort of a fly on the wall. I needed an excuse to go to Vegas. It was going on. I bought a pass so I could write off the trip and hung out with my buddies. But I popped my head in, and it was a lot more lively and fun. I also did the same thing popping into a DRI. For those who don't know, DRI, Defense Research Institute, that is the pharmaceutical, the insurance defense lawyers. That's their big omnibus organization that puts on their version of how do we frustrate all these plaintiffs lawyers. And so and you could buy and go to one of their seminars as well. I've done a couple of those. My uncle was big into DRI because he actually fought with Mark over a diet drug when he was on the defense side, and Mark and Levin were on the plaintiff side. We talked about that in the green room before we came on live. And boy, I'll tell you, the plaintiff side seminars are a lot more fun than the defense side.
They certainly are. If you've not, I know this one's virtual, but they got Al Pacino, for God's sake. So, Al Pacino for a Q&A will be amazing. And if you haven't been to a live MTMP, it is a sight to behold. They have figured out how to have conference and fun in one. So I hope that everybody here gets an opportunity. If you have questions about it, feel free to ping me. I've been a regular moderating their Business of Law track for almost a decade now. So excited that this one's coming up in April. But Jay,
that's one thing. We talked a little bit about MTMP. I think that is, even if you don't necessarily want to get into the space, if you're thinking about growing your practice and scaling your firm, even if you're a trust and estates lawyer, you could go to one of these seminars, and if you go in with an open mind, you will pick up nuggets that you could apply to your own practice. If you're doing family law, you can see how other people have thought through problems and address that in your own thing. And we're lucky because there's a couple of seminars like that. Obviously, we've got MTMP, we've got Maximum LawCon, which is going to be in October this year. If you want to do the hands-on stuff, you and I have participated in John Fisher's mastermind, which is phenomenal. And there's some other stuff out there.
NTL coming up.
NTL's coming up
live. You have NTL coming up in May, and hopefully we'll get somebody from there on the show over the next couple of weeks. Hope to get Michael Mogul talking about the CRISP as 2 events, a virtual and a live. But I'm excited. The very first one back for those that are brave in Miami will be the National Trial Lawyers, which is about celebrating a 10-year run. And to me is one of those ones, trial lawyer or not, it focuses on the business of law. And while there's great trial lawyer substance with some of the best and brightest, or the best and brightest in the business, at least half the time is dedicated to the business of law with specific tracks. So even those, I see a lot of people, there's a whole criminal section with its own happy hours, that even if you're not in those sections, that these conferences that, these are people that have figured out how to build and scale at a giant level, that as you're building and climbing the ladder, it is, something that is awesome to be able to sort of emulate and grab things from.
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to be a speaker there last year, and just getting to be around all those people is phenomenal. So obviously, folks, stay with us here at Max Growth Live. We'll let you know the must-go-to conferences and give you our opinions of who the speakers are and what you really should be looking out for when you do attend those. And as many as we can get to, we'll do pop-up episodes at those events. So that we can bring you the best of it if you are stuck at home. But with that, Seth, we're going to leave this week. Just another phenomenal week, some great stuff that we had today. Any parting words?
No, just continue to kick ass. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, baseball starting. I got Little League practices all weekend. I'm going to be at Little League 6 or 7 days a week over the next couple of months, and I'm really looking forward to being out of the house. So that's my positive thought for the day. Folks, thank you so much for being with us here on Maximum Growth Live. Of course, you can always catch our live show every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific on our Facebook page. Of course, if you want to take us on the go, you can subscribe to the Maximum Lawyer podcast, because we are syndicated through the Maximum Lawyer Media, or you can download our own podcast wherever you get your podcast, be it Spotify, Amazon, Audible, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. But for now, Seth, I'm going to sign off. Have a great week. Oh, so let's tell somebody about your SEO Insider. You've been doing some great stuff, and that's available. What page can they get the SEO Insider?
It's on the Blue Shark digital website. It's also available on all the podcast places. But if you want to see a video, we got all the videos located there on the Blue Shark. Blueshark.com, as well as any podcast area. But I just love it because it gives me an opportunity, an excuse to dig deep. And I think this is a great metaphor for anybody who loves and is passionate about something. Not only is it great to have these conversations to share, we've simulcasted a few on Max Growth Live, but it gives you the opportunity to talk to people that would never talk to you otherwise. These are people that are thought leaders that we've, said, hey, and so it's almost selfish. Like I get my geek out time with Rand Fishkin and all sorts of people like that. And at the same time, we create great content that others can glean from. So I encourage people that if they have something they are passionate about, and there's a world of people that normally you'd say, I'd love to just pick your brain, which is an awful saying, and it's taken on a whole bunch of controversy on the Max Law thread. The idea is, if you said, I want to pick your brain, somebody's like, I don't really want to do it. And half the people won't do it. But if you say, hey, I want to host you on my podcast, it's a different world. And it has allowed us access to the inside of brains that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Absolutely. So, folks, if you want to pick my brain about systems, you can always join our Systemizing Your Law Firm for Growth Facebook group. You can find it there. Just type in Systemizing Your Law Firm, send us a message. We'll get you in. I post systems every couple of days or so. I'll put something out there, and we really talk about things that you can do to help grow your firm. I'm actually going to build when we get done here today, because you know me, I love building the step-by-step processes.
Absolutely. And I hate to drag this out, but I would say stuff that I've learned from Jay. We have some internal issues with our intake, and I've been struggling with it. And as we are having a changing the guards, I'm finding that like the issues very often, it's not just having a system, but the person who's building the systems within you as you start to scale. I know you love it, so you do it yourself, but when you delegate it down, the same person who may be not ideal at building a system, at doing certain elements of their job, the system they're building may not be. And so that when there is a changing of the guards, whether it's with or without notice, making sure that you review those systems there, because it is, you find you don't know, as a business owner, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And it's not that the train isn't running on time, but the question is making sure that you don't lose institutional knowledge and that it's all in there. I'm always amazed at what, as somebody may be leaving, again, something we've talked about, we'll talk about more, that very often people have left before they actually left, and making sure that the systems which you assumed are right are using that as a check and balance. And that I think that what I'd love to have a talk about on a future Tuesday would be, how do you have periodic checks to make sure those systems reflect what you want them to have? Because I found that there are times where systems take on a life of their own, especially if you don't have your control of all of them, where lawyers ask for things and things start happening that aren't there or that fall in between the systems. So anyway, future topics.
We can talk about this for days. I'm going through it right now. Just quickly, my resolve has been for the second quarter. I have an auditor now who actually audits the implementation of the systems in our office. So we're doing spot checks even on me. With
is this auditor looking at the system themselves, or is auditing
making sure that, and I have a second person.
But do they review
who is actually
documentation?
So that's the first thing. So we've got somebody who first quarter, and they're not done yet. This may be a third and fourth quarter thing when we get through it. But we've got 1,500 documented systems, actually more than that now, and we actually have somebody whose job it is to go through. Is the system the best way to do it now? Is this system in use now? And does it need to be fixed? And so we're going through each system and updating it.
I'd like to be the first Firm Flex auditor system client, where somebody's going to go through and look at my systems, rip them apart, and then make sure they're being implemented.
It's a ton of work. I mean,
once you commoditize it, I'm the first client.
It's amazing how much work goes into it. But what we found was we were able to combine a system. You know, things changed so much with COVID that our defaults of doing stuff in person or, you know, hands-on, now we can do it with tech. So we're making changes. You know, we're you know, this is a living, breathing thing. And I've said that a couple other times. My law firm is living and breathing and aging just like you and I are. And we are making changes every day. And the systems, you know, I know that, you know, when I have to take a shower, I can go to the bathroom to do that here in my house. And I have a system for getting dressed in the morning. You know, I put my pants on first, then I put on my shirt. And there are some things that are just reflexive. But, you know, in order to be better, I need to constantly look at it and make sure am I doing it the right way. And that's what we're all about. So, folks, we have gone way, way long. This is a throwback to one of our August shows where we had nothing else going on. So we would just talk and talk and talk. But there was some great stuff here today, Seth. So I want to say goodbye. Thank you so much. Folks, tune in every week for us. We'll be back next week with another edition of Maximum Growth Live.